How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video I want to talk about my top 10 films of 2024. Now, these are films that were released in the United States in the year 2024. There's always some movies that technically are 2023 movies that they premiered, but they didn't premiere in the United States, so there was no access to see them here, which is where I live. So I'm just going to focus on movies where the United States release date was in the year 2024. That being said, I think I should start off with some honorable mentions. Movies that I saw this year that were really good, but just didn't quite make the list. There was, I will say, a lot of the times when I watch movies throughout the year, it's very back end heavy. I watch a lot of movies at the very end of the year, mainly because a lot of movies come out at the very end of the year that are really good. They save a lot of movies for the end of the year for like Oscars and things like that, because they want to be, right there, right at the front of people's minds. And also, I try to watch a lot of movies for this list to make a list. So I tend to put things off. So that's why at the end of the year, it's always just a insane amount of movies that I've seen. So I'm going to pull up Letterboxd here. And actually, let me do this. Let me see what I can do here. So what I'll do is I'll actually screen record the iPad, and I'll be able to take the video from that, so you'll actually be able to see what I'm seeing. This is perfect. Okay. So I am clicking the year 2024 right now. And yeah, so these are all the movies that I saw. All the ones that are faded are ones that I saw in 2024. I'm going to go by okay. I'm going to go by highest rating. I'm not going to show you the very top, but I will show you up to the very top. Okay. Alright, and actually, let me get rid of the faded. Just so we can look at it a little bit more. Okay, so this year, I'm just going to show you kind of the ones that didn't make my list, so that's what we're looking at right now. So if you're looking at a movie right now, most likely it didn't make my list. There's going to be some of these that did, though. Okay. Maybe I'll make this a little too complicated. But, let's see, some movies that I thought were good that just didn't quite make it. Longlegs. A lot of people were a big fan of Longlegs. This movie worked for me. I thought it was good. I thought it was a decent thriller, but it just wasn't at the level that some people I think it was. Some people think it was really bad. I'm not one of those people. I do think it was good. I didn't mind Nick Cage's performance. I thought it was totally adequate. I thought it was fine. But it wasn't enough to make my top 10 list. What else do we have on here? Nosferatu was, it is not a bad movie whatsoever. It's a totally adequate, good movie. But I will say Nosferatu probably my most disappointing film of 2024, just because I thought it was going to blow me away. I thought I was going to love it. I love the director. I love The Witch, which is a previous movie that he's done. I was super excited for this. I thought it was going to be great. It was just good. And because it was just good, it just wasn't enough to make my top 10 list. But that being said, this is one that probably just missed it, What else was on here? Monkey Man, once again, I thought it was a solid film, but it just wasn't different enough to make me want to put it on my list. Is just very much like a John Wick kind of revenge thriller, action. Not really a thriller, but just a all-out action movie. Conclave was just a well done film. I thought Conclave was going to be kind of like Spotlight and have I thought it was going to be the pacing of Spotlight, the editing, the acting, everything. The thing with Spotlight is like everything's a 10 in my opinion. I think Spotlight's damn perfect it's a perfect film in my opinion. I was hoping that the Conclave would be something like that. I had heard reviews about it, and I thought maybe it had a chance to do that, but for me, it did not. It's a totally adequate film. Um, it just, everything was good. I think everything was good in that film. The editing was good, the acting was good, everything was good. It just wasn't great, which is what I was hoping it for. So that didn't quite make my list. Speak No Evil, I thought it was a solid horror movie. I have not seen the original in which this is based off of. It's on my list to watch this year, but I thought it was totally good. Just not enough to make my top 10, but it is very good. My Old Ass is actually a movie that took me by surprise and was pretty solid. I thought it was, it's a kind of sad a little bit, but it also has a lot of cool different things about it that I liked. I thought it was good. If you haven't seen My Old Ass, it's on Amazon Prime. I would check it out. Dee Dee was a coming of age story that I really enjoyed, but it just wasn't enough to make my list. But it has that 90s feel. It's kind of like Minding the Gap, the documentary, and I don't know what other film, but it's kind of like that, but the narrative version, and maybe a little less dark. Um, so it's good. Like I enjoyed it. Just wasn't enough. Um, the Devil's Bath is a horror movie. I believe it's a German film. I enjoyed that film. I thought it was good and interesting. The cinematography is really beautiful in it. Story's pretty simple, but I don't mind simple. Like I said, going back to Nosferatu, Robert Eggers, is that the directors? Yeah. Robert Eggers did The Witch, which is a very simple film, very basic, not a whole lot of plot going on. It sets up a premise and then just stays there basically and just kind of develops. Simple is not bad, but I just want to see something a little more unique, a little different, whatever that may be in a film. So The Devil's Bath, I would recommend it. It was good. So those were some of the really solid films that I saw this year that just didn't quite make the list. The other ones are pretty bad in my opinion. Going down to the very bottom, Salem's Lot was really not good. Lisa Frankenstein, not for me. The Joker sequel, really not for me. That was just really bad in my opinion. A big letdown. I really enjoyed the first Joker. Actually, I thought it was good. Some people hate that movie, but I like that movie. I thought it was good and dark and a cool thriller. This movie was just boring and long, and the music wasn't great, and it just wasn't good. A completely unnecessary film in my opinion. Drive Away Dolls. I thought this movie was going to be good. It's a Coen brother movie. Ethan Coen. This movie was not good. Was not a fan. Just wasn't very funny, which it kind of wants to be a comedy, like many Coen brothers films. But I just did not like this. Kinds of Kindness. I loved Poor Things last year. It was one of my favorite films. Definitely in my top 10. Kinds of Kindness did not do it for me. This one was a little too out there for me, and once again, just kind of boring and slow and didn't really go anywhere. And there's multiple stories that it tells, and none of the stories were that interesting. So, unfortunately, Kinds of Kindness was a pretty big disappointment. Beetlejuice. Awesome original film. This movie was really not good. Once again, just an unnecessary sequel, and almost kind of diminishes the first. It's just not good, unfortunately. Brothers just wasn't that great. Really basic, kind of a Coen Brothers story, but just not very good. And I love all the actors involved. It's just wasn't doing it. Brad's not a good documentary, but yeah, Ricky Stenicki, really bad. Roadhouse had some decent action, but ultimately just left nothing to be desired. I'll end this section with juror number 2. This one really, really let me down. I heard such great things about this movie. Everyone was saying how great juror number 2 was, and Yeah, I watched it and was just very disappointed. The setup is great, you know, it's got a really good premise, but it just just doesn't really go anywhere interesting and isn't very exciting, and where it ends up is just not very good. But I'll end that there, and we will move on to the top 10 movies. So, without further ado, let's get into my actual list of top 10 movies of 2024. So, starting off the list, we have a horror film that has a lot of buzz this year. You know, a lot of people talked about this movie. I had heard about it throughout the year ever since it came out. This one took me a while to actually see. Once again, this is one that I kind of saved for the end of the year and until I watched it. But of course, this movie is The Substance. This movie's amazing. Demi Moore just does a phenomenal job in this movie. This movie is directed by, oh man, Coralie Fargate, Fargate, Coralie Fargate. That must be it. You know me with names. I'm so sorry. Anyway, this is starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, and yeah, Dennis Quaid's also in this film, but it's really just Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. Both of them do a phenomenal job acting in this film. This film is I would describe it, if you've ever seen Black Mirror, this is a Black Mirror episode. It's a sci-fi premise in the not so distant future, you know, and it just plays with beauty standards and the fading of fame, and chasing fame and chasing our younger selves and like what we used to look like, and like just combating old age and fading away. Just the fear of being taken out of the spotlight. This is a really cool premise. I thought the body horror in this is crazy, you know. So the practical effects of that like just look phenomenal. Demi Moore, like I said, just is fearless in her performance and just puts it all out there, literally. And I mean, she just does a phenomenal job. I really love her. I love Margaret Qualley in it. You know, the acting is phenomenal. The setup, the story is great. Just goes a little too long in my opinion, which is why it's not higher on my list. But I do think it's kind of pushing the boundaries, and it's something that, you know, we love to see in cinema. Yeah, this is a great film. So I highly recommend it. It's Substance, and it's my number 10 for 2024. Next up is a film that I was hoping I would love a little bit more than what I actually did. However, this is still a really great film. It's a little bit of a slow burn. Right after I watched it, I was a little lukewarm about it. You know, I was like, that was good, you know. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of replayed things in my mind and just kind of digested it. Anora, which is my number 9 film of 2024, directed by Sean Baker, is a really interesting, fun story about a stripper in New York City who meets this kind of rich Russian 21-year-old and kind of gets to start to live a little bit of a lavish lifestyle for a very brief, limited amount of time. And then she kind of gets in deep with all the drama that goes on with him. I'm going to try to stay spoiler free in this list, but this movie is a mix between maybe Pretty Woman and a film called Day Trippers. If you kind of smash those two films together, I think you would get Anora or something close to it. This is it's an interesting film. It's got a lot of drama in it. It's got a lot of humor in it. It is a very funny film. It's a kind of a dry, dark humor, but it is a very funny film. There's a side character who plays, let me think, Igor. Igor kind of steals the show in this movie. He's nominated for an Oscar. Mikey Madison, the main actress in this film, she is also nominated for an Oscar. Um, she does a phenomenal job. This is a great kind of breakout role for her, I believe, and she does a great job. I think she's really good, and she very much carries the film. Her between her and the actor Yura Borisov, who plays Igor, between the two of them, they just both carry the film, and I think they're great. Everyone involved in this film really does bring it. The directing is great, the editing. It's a solid film. But like I said, it just didn't blow me away, especially it's grown on me and maybe it'll continue to grow on me. Maybe eventually I'll get it, in my mind higher on a list. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. It's Anora. I definitely recommend checking it out. It does deserve a spot on my top 10. And if it wasn't for Demi Moore in The Substance, I would want Mikey to get a Oscar for this. But I'm rooting for Demi Moore, actually, for The Substance. Not that I really care about the Oscars too much, but it would be cool to see Demi Moore win that. But anyway, that is Anora, and that is my number 9 film. Number 8, and this is one of those films that technically on Letterboxd it says a 2023 film, but it didn't get a U.S. release until 2024. So I'm counting it as a 2024 film, even though this might have been on a lot of people's lists last year. I'm counting it for this year. That's just how I'm going to do it. Just like how I'm going to count The Brutalist as 2025, because it really wasn't available until 2025. In any form of, there was just no way I could have seen this film, The Brutalist, Anyway, number 8 is going to be Perfect Days. It's I think it's Wim Wenders or Wim Wenders, or maybe Wim Wenders. I don't know. It's one of those three. I know this director from Paris, Texas, which is a film I saw, which is a beloved film that a lot of people love. For me, it's not my favorite film, unfortunately. So I wasn't sure about Perfect Days. Perfect Days, I will have to say, is about a janitor in Tokyo, essentially. He's a cleaner that cleans public restrooms in Tokyo. And this is kind of close to my heart a little bit, as I, in my personal life, was a cleaner for like 10 plus years, right? So it's a topic that I'm very familiar with, So I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. Maybe I will enjoy it. Maybe I'll have some connection. I'll have some connection with this because I'm very close to the subject matter. And yes, I very much connected to this. I watched this movie and I was like, whoa, this kind of captures or encapsulates a point in time in my life, and a big chunk of my life actually was kind of this movie. So that's why it's number 8 on my list. It's a great film. I think the main actor is amazing in it. It's a very reserved performance. It's not like super big and out there. It's very, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but it is just very a reserved performance, It's not a big, grandiose thing. It's a slow burn of a movie. We kind of follow this guy in maybe a few weeks of his life, 2 or 3 weeks, and kind of just see this man who follows certain routines and just finds the beauty in life. And I thought it was just a very beautiful film. And like I said, it just kind of hit me a certain way because, this was just my life for a while. So it was just interesting to see on film. And it just was different, It was something unique and different. And definitely, it's a film that it's cool that it connects with a lot of people and so many people because it feels like such a personal film to me in my life specifically, which is, it just, like I said, I kind of lived this movie for like 10 years, like it almost like many things are kind of very similar. So it's just interesting. But that's why I really enjoyed this film. It's Perfect Days. I highly recommend you check it out. It's a beautiful film. I believe it's playing on Hulu right now. So if you have that, I definitely recommend checking it out. That is Perfect Days, and it's my number 8 film. So my number 7 film is the only documentary on this list. It is called The Contestant, and it's directed by Claire Titley or Titley. This is a crazy movie. Apparently, in the early 90s, I believe, or late 90s, it must have been, there's this guy in Japan who essentially invents reality television as we know it. And puts on a show kind of like The Amazing Race, where like people are traveling across the world and they have like challenges and stuff to do. He does that and it's like a huge success in Japan. After that, he's like trying to figure out what he wants to do next. You know, he wants to keep pushing the boundaries of this new kind of format, reality film. And he decides he wants to pick a random person. He picks this guy. He puts him into a room. And this guy doesn't really know what he's signing up for. He just knows that this is a new reality show, and he probably is aware of the other reality show and like thought it was great. And this guy kind of wants to be a comedian or like an actor or something. So he's like, let's do this. You know, I don't really have a whole lot of things going on right now. I want to kind of do something new. Let's try this out. So the reality show creator puts this guy into a studio apartment that's super tiny. It has like a little kitchenette and like a little, living room essentially, because it's a studio little thing. And that's it. There's very minimal furniture. There's like a little table. And then there's a, what are those? Kind of like a shelf thing that has just a bunch of magazines. And in those magazines are a bunch of sweepstakes that at the time you can like write in for and try to win sweepstakes. It was like a big thing in Japan. So the challenge is for this one guy who's just alone in a room, studio apartment, to try to live off of only what he wins from those sweepstakes. Meanwhile, trying to like get an overall tally to a certain amount of money. Which is like 1,000,000 yen, I think, or won, whatever the yen, right? Yeah, whatever the Japanese currency is. He has to get 1,000,000 of that, and then once he gets 1,000,000, he wins essentially. But when does that happen? Who knows? Like how long it takes, right? So this guy is just naked in a room, and all he does is just try to enter sweepstakes. That's it. Just tries to enter a sweepstakes to win. So not only does he have to hit this X amount, he gets nothing as far as food or anything else like that. I think he's got water in there, but that's it. He just has water. But so if he wants to eat, he has to win it from sweepstakes. If he wants clothing or anything else, because he's naked, he has to win it from one of these magazines. So the first few days and stuff is just him writing all these things and just sending them out to hopefully win something. And I think it takes like a month or whatever until he actually wins something. This movie takes you places. It's bizarre. It's crazy. And remember, this is the very early stages of reality TV. Like nobody had ever seen anything like this. It captivated Japan at the time. It was just, it's crazy. It's crazy. I didn't know about this story, so seeing this story really blew my mind. It's very much a Truman Show thing. When this happened, it happened before the Truman Show, so the idea of like a show about a person and like many people watching somebody without them knowing wasn't even an idea when this happened, right? Which is why the story is like so groundbreaking and kind of crazy. I highly recommend watching this movie. This movie, I mean, it just blew me away. It was crazy. It's a crazy documentary. It's called The Contestant. It's my number 7 film of 2024, and I highly recommend it. My number 6 film is actually a movie that kind of bums me out because last year, 2024, this movie just didn't really get a lot of talk. Nobody really talked too much about this movie. It came out, and I expected it to be a big box office, success. And no, it just kind of fizzled out. Nobody really watched it, and there wasn't a whole lot of talk about it, which kind of bummed me out and made it so that I kind of didn't go to. I didn't go see it in theaters. It was one that I was like, oh, I guess I'll just watch that later. Because I haven't heard very many things about it. That movie is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, and it's directed by George Miller. And I'm here to tell you that if you kind of felt how I felt and you still haven't bothered to watch it, you're making a big mistake, because this is actually a phenomenal film, and it's just as good, in my opinion, as Mad Max Fury Road. It's like right there. Mad Max Fury Road is maybe just a hair better, but as far as quality goes, this movie is just as good as far as quality. Like, the cinematography and the set pieces and just the editing and everything in this film is out of 10. It's so good. This film is just, it's a really great roller coaster ride of just action and pure adrenaline. Very much how Fury Road was. If you enjoyed Fury Road, I really think that you're gonna enjoy this film. You know, I think it's really good. I am very much a character kind of story driven, emotion kind of driven when it comes to my kind of favorite movies, which is why it's not higher on my list. But don't sleep on this film. This is a great film. It's Furiosa, and it's my number 6 film of 2024. I highly recommend you check it out. My number 5 film. This one might be a little like, oh, you know, to some people. Maybe like film snobs, right? But when I go to the movies, I'm looking for experience. I'm looking for whatever that may be, right? Whether it's a emotional tearjerker experience or I'm laughing my ass off comedy experience. Just, I want to feel something, right? This movie has got the laughs. It's got the nostalgia. It's got the fun. You know, it's a thrill ride action. And this is one of my favorite experiences in the theater of 2024. So that's why my number 5 is Deadpool and Wolverine. I had a lot of fun with this movie. Hugh Jackman, there's almost never been a better casting other than Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He just kills it. So anytime he plays that character, he does a phenomenal job. So a lot of times in his movies, they've been a lot more serious, you know, which are totally fine. And but I love that this film has a lot more humor in it. So you have that clash of the humor. It's a buddy comedy, you know, where you have the straight man, which is Wolverine, and then you have the wacky, you know, crazy guy, which is Deadpool. So, I mean, the tale is old as time. When it comes to films, that buddy comedy dynamic, you know, planes, trains, and automobiles, whatever it may be, you can't get more classic than that. And then to celebrate the films that have come before it in the Marvel Universe and even have some characters come back, it's just, it was the most fun I had probably in the theater, which is why I had to put this movie on my list. It's Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy. I'm sure you've seen this film. If you haven't, you have to see this film. It's a lot of fun, trust me. But that is number 5 on my film. That is number 5 on my list. Sorry. We're at the top end of the list. All right. Number 4 for me was a movie called We Live in Time. This is an A24 film. It's directed by John Crowley. It's got Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. I don't know why I spaced on his name for a second. It's got Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. This is essentially a story of boy meets girl, right? It's a love story. It's a relationship movie where we see the very beginning of a relationship and then all the way till the end, essentially. This is a very beautiful film. It captures kind of very very intimate moments in a relationship in two people's lives. I thought it was very beautiful. This movie, you know, it takes you places. It can be a little bit sad at times. It could be funny at times. It could be crazy at times. But I really enjoyed this film. It it checked all the boxes for me. I like these type of films. And yeah, it's one of those where like there's not a whole lot to say about this film. Other than I thought it was very good. I thought it was very good. And for me, like I said, when it comes to my style of movies that I like to watch, this is right up there. And I just really enjoyed the acting and the chemistry between the two of the characters. And yeah, I highly recommend it. It's We Live in Time, and it's my number 4 film of 2024. Once again, we have another movie that technically premiered in 2023, but not in the U.S. So I'm doing it for this year. But this movie blew me away. I had not heard about this movie until much later in this year, and from what I heard, it was very similar or in the same vein as like a David Fincher film. Big fan of David Fincher, gotta check it out. My number three film is a film called Red Rooms. I believe this is a Canadian film. It's either French or Canadian, or French Canadian. Um, but this movie blew me away. This movie is a suspenseful thriller, very dark. However, it's very dark, but it's very, once again, reserved. Right? It's like a slow burn. It's not gratuitous or like in your face with a bunch of stuff. Like it's very calculated and holds back, and it just holds this tension for the entire movie. I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out. We have this narrator that we're not sure is like super reliable or what the motives of the main character is. This movie blew me away. Essentially, the basic plot of this film is we start off in a courtroom and we find out that there was a serial killer, essentially, somebody who killed multiple people, specifically young teenage girls. And they did this on the dark web, right? So people would pay to watch this guy do these things. Horrible things, right? Really graphic, dark setup. And they already have this guy caught. And we are kind of watching the courtroom. And the usual suspects that would be there in a case like this, we have the parents of the victims. We have, the accused, and then the defense and the prosecution and everything else. But also we have some people that are just there to watch the case, essentially, just citizens. And in those is our main character who is attached to this case or like has a strong pull to this case, right? And like is very interested. We come to find out kind of obsessed with this case, right? And then there's another person there who she meets, another woman who's like very much in love with this suspected killer, right? She like is infatuated with this guy, and she's kind of out there and crazy. But I don't want to give too much away about this, but that's kind of the basic setup. Where this film goes and how it goes blew me away. Like I said, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I highly recommend this film. It was phenomenal, which is why it's a top 3 movie for me. If you have a chance to see this, I know it's on Shudder, which I know a whole lot of people don't subscribe to Shudder, but they have free trials. If you're a horror fan at all, I would recommend at least doing the free trial and definitely watching this movie, and also watching the Devil's Bath. Those are my recommendations on there. But you have to see this film at least at some point. Red Rooms is phenomenal. If you like anything David Fincher, kind of think of The Zodiac or Gone Girl or anything like that. It's that kind of vein. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. You're right. That's another one that is compared to this film. This film is almost perfect in my opinion. I highly recommend you check it out. It's called Red Rooms. Enough said. That's my number 3. Go check it out. This film I thought was going to be my number 1 and was my number 1 for a very long time. This movie's so smart. It blew me away. The dialogue is so sharp in this film. It's so smart. It's I will say a lot of people. This movie's a very mixed movie when it comes to reviews and stuff. It didn't land with a whole lot of people, and I get that, especially the back half of this film. But the front half of this film is so perfect and sharp and just such a great piece of cinema that it was one of my favorite things in the theater this year. I ate it up. I thought it was great. I was on the edge of my seat. This, of course, is A24's Heretic, and it's my number 2 film. It's directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, starring who do we got here? Hugh Jackman is I'm back on Wolverine. Hugh Grant is the main lead. I would say in this film, he very much carries this movie. But the other two female casts in here, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, do a great job in this movie as well. They're kind of adversaries, like against Hugh Grant's character. It's great. It's great. I highly recommend this film. It talks about religion, it talks about faith and belief and all these different big, scary concepts in life, right? These are heavy topics. And it has all that weight in this film and is very smart about it and challenges a lot of things. And I just loved it. I thought it was great. It's a phenomenal film. The back half of it, I do think, is not as good as the front half of it, which a lot of people say, and a lot of people, that's why a lot of people can't call it a perfect movie or think it's phenomenal. I think it's not a perfect movie, but it is phenomenal in my opinion. I think it's great. I definitely think it's worth the ride. I don't think it goes bad at all at any point. It's just not as good, right? It does start to diminish it by the end. But I still think it's a great film. That's why I have it on my number 2. It's Heretic. I highly recommend you check it out. The last film I saw completely blew me away. I actually saw this movie. I rented both movies at the same day. I rented Red Rooms in the same day, and then I rented this film, and I watched them both. And man, what a day that was! Both, these two films ended up on my top 3. So, I mean, it's crazy to have that in one day. Kind of doing that, but. This is a stop motion film, actually. And it's directed by Adam Elliott. It's called Memoir of a Snail. And this movie, I don't think, got a wide release in the U.S. This year, which is a bummer. I mean, maybe it did, and I just completely missed it. But this movie blew me away. I was turned on to it by my brother. And, sometimes my brother and I, we don't really see eye to eye when it comes to films, He's into different movies than I am, So I kind of took it with a grain of salt. But then I had heard another review from somebody that was like, oh, Memoir of a Snail is one of my favorite films of the year. And I was like, all right, well, if my brother thinks it's good and then this other person thinks it's good, I'll give it a shot. Thankfully, I did. It is my favorite film of the year. It is a beautiful film. It is a sad film. The emotions are all over the place on this, but it is a very dark, sad film. Because life can sometimes be very dark and sad. But however, there's a lot of light in this movie. There's a lot of humor in this movie. And just beautiful. It's just one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. It kind of has the aesthetic of like any of those stop motion things like Wallace and Gromit, but this is like Wallace and Gromit meets Corpse Bride. It's kind of got a Tim Burton kind of style. The director, Adam Elliott, has done other stop motion, I believe, in this same thing, style. I really want to go back and check out his earlier work. He's got another film. Memoir of a Son. I mean, it's just so beautiful. It follows this this young girl from when the time she was born to later in her life, and just kind of follows her story and her journey. She's born with kind of like a cleft lip type thing, where they had to do surgery on her lip, and then people make fun of her because of that. They call her a rabbit because she looks like a rabbit. And her mother dies giving birth to her. And she says that snails, when snails give birth, the mom dies. So she has this infatuation with snails, and kind of throughout the whole film and her whole life, she kind of collects things that have to do with snails. And she has a brother who she loves, and just the story between her and her brother, the love that they have there, and her and her family, and what happens to her family. It's just kind of this grandiose story, similar in the vein to maybe like a Forrest Gump or something. Like, we just follow this one person from an early age to them growing up, and it's just unlike anything I've ever seen. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. And yeah, I highly recommend seeing this. I cried multiple times in this film, so just be prepared for that. But I definitely think that it's required viewing for anybody. This is a rated R film. It's a rated R stop motion movie, which isn't typical. Typically, you think of like a Wallace and Gromit or Chicken Run or anything like that. This is not that. This is a very much an adult story, but it is a beautiful story. I definitely recommend checking it out. That's Memoir of a Swan. It is my number one film for 2024. And yeah, I appreciate you sticking out for this list. There was originally I didn't think that this was a good year for film, but by the end of it, I saw enough films that made me enjoy that. I do think it was a good year for film. You just kind of have to look around for it. There's a lot of movies that are kind of hard to see somewhere. You know, they're not like mainstream films. But I definitely think you should check these out. They're worth a shot. Yeah, anything on my top 10 list, in my opinion, is you will enjoy, and I think it's great. But that's it. Those are my top 10 films of 2024. I would love to hear what you guys think, if you agree or disagree with any of mine. And also, if you want to put your top 10 films in the comments below, I'd love to check them out. I'm still, catching up and watching some more. Wicked was one that I didn't get a chance to see. There's a few other ones that I didn't get a chance to see, so they're not on my list. But, there's so many, of course, you're going to miss a few. A Wild Robot was another one. So, but yeah, thanks a lot, and I will see you on the next video. All right, bye.